Hey everyone! Welcome back! I am back today with more Mob Psycho 100. You guys, I am really excited to be watching today. If you're joining me early, you know what it means. It means you are one of my awesome patrons. Thank you so much, and as always, I'm sending you up those big old hugs right through that screen. And if not, still thank you for joining me today. I'm glad you're here. I do hope you'll consider supporting me that way. The link to my Patreon is going to be in the description down below. So I really am getting into Mob Psycho now because last episode we kind of got a little bit deeper into the kind of like psychological, social type commentary about like the characters on this show and the world in this show. So we know that Mob has to push everything down and try and like not basically like try not to explode. The more he kind of feels and everything, the more he gets closer to exploding. And we know now that there is something very, very powerful within Mob that is very dangerous. And we know it actually came out at another time. We had the flashback with him and his brother, and people ended up getting hurt, and his brother kind of got hurt. And so he's very, very careful about using his powers and even like feeling to a degree. And I think it's just some folks have reached out and commented that like, what an awful thing to have to push that all down. And it's so true, and we got a little bit more commentary, I think, in the last one about not so much pushing down, but the ways in which feelings and emotions can come out for different people. We had the kind of like stereotypical bad kid in school, and he ended up getting framed. And we know like he, even though like he fought, he got in fights and acted out in some ways, was like actually trying really hard to get like good attendance. And, so whatever was making him act out that way, he actually wasn't like a bad kid or a bad student, And then we had Mom's brother and the other student that we met, who we know was like under a whole lot of pressure from like his mom and his brother and everything to just like not do well in school, but like do above and beyond in school and in everything. I guess you could kind of say they're pushing it down a little bit, but it's just coming out in different ways because they ended up framing the kid who got into fights and everything in an attempt to try and get him like kicked out of school. Which is going to lead to the whole purpose, I think, behind it was they were trying to take a big stance against kids who were like delinquents in school and things like that. So in a manner of speaking, it's going to kind of like reflect better on them in some way, and their actions and efforts, because they're like part of the student council and everything. And it really was kind of an act of desperation. But it's interesting to see like, okay, we have Mob who like pushes all that down. We have other kids who, it just comes out in different ways. But either way, like they're not really addressing the real problem. So it's kind of an interesting commentary about like working through your issues and your feelings, and it's such a volatile age, like middle school age, and we've all been there and we all know how much it can suck. So it was interesting to watch. I give them so much kudos because initially I was just really like by the numbers comparing this to One Punch Man, and pretty quickly into this series they've established this is very much its own thing, and they've just like gone in a really like unique direction with it, and I'm excited to see more. I also wanted to point out really quickly that folks have let me know that the animation for this, which I thought looked like different, I couldn't really peg it. It doesn't look like smooth and almost like video game-ish like some of the fancier animation studios, but it looks very like gorgeous and unique. Some folks have pointed out to me that this is hand-drawn animation, which, wow. There's dedication, and then there's that. Like, that is just, like, off the charts amazing. And it looks so good. You can tell, like, can you imagine how much work went into that? So just wanted to point that out because that is just too cool to go without mentioning. So where we kind of left off was Mob's brother, who's been really just going through it, thinking that he doesn't have any psychic abilities. We see that he actually finds Dimple at the end. And we know that, like, only people with abilities can see Dimple, because, like, Reigen can't see Dimple. Mob can see Dimple, but few other people can see Dimple. So, and we know that he, like, kind of bent the spoon a little bit. They reveal that at the end of the episode. So, so we know that he does have something, and that's been, like, his big thing, is that he just feels so left in the lurch because he doesn't have any of these abilities. So really loving the show so far. What do you say we get started on another episode? Let's go. All right, you guys, let's talk, because I am officially worried about Ritsu. That did not take much time for him to just really get just kind of power crazed, and I guess it makes sense because he's been carrying these feelings of, you know, not measuring up to Mob and everything for a really long time. But I was just like, oh man, even I was, like, taken aback by how quickly he just kind of got drunk on the power. But I think it was just kind of a long time coming. So again, we have, like, a ton of feelings and emotions that are built up, and this is how they come out. Now his power is being amplified by Dimple. I wonder if the whole, like, building up and hitting 100% and exploding and all that, like, is that something that's unique to Mob? Because we know Mob kind of, like, pushes everything down so that and now we know if emotions are very closely linked with the powers, that's probably why that he, you know, doesn't want the powers to get out of control. He doesn't want them to be he wants to be, like, really in control of them at all times because of how dangerous they are. But I wonder if it's something like that whole, like, when Mob goes unconscious and comes out is, like, this just whatever is going on. I don't even know what is going on. That wasn't him exploding. That was something totally different. Like, is that unique to Mob? Because I feel like it probably is. And since other individuals who have these powers aren't, like, pushing down their emotions, they probably won't experience the explosion the way that Mob does, would be my guess. Really, really interesting world building here. It's interesting to see. So we have 3 people now who have psychic abilities, and it's very curious to see how each one of them have used their powers. I think, you know, like, let's not kid ourselves that at middle school age, if we had those abilities, that we wouldn't all, like, be trying to use them in some form of, like, self-gain or something. I mean, we're only human, you know, and that's a tough, tough, tough age. But by the end of this episode, even the president kid was, as soon as those gangs showed up and Ritsu just started unleashing on them, like, that had even gone too far for the president kid. And that's really saying something, considering some of the shady stuff we saw him doing. But, like, the far-reaching limits of, like, the consequences of, you know, kind of basically having sort of an open challenge to, like, all these different strong individuals from all these schools, just open up even more trouble than was worth for him. So, wow. You know, this show can be pretty heavy and dark, you know? There's a lot to be said about the way that they're illustrating, like, corruption here. And, you know, both the president and Ritsu think that they're doing something Well, I think the president especially, you know, the whole thing was he thought he was going to like clean up the school, and it really was just kind of for self gain because, but it's a very interesting commentary on, you know, the consequences of taking something like good intentions too far also. But I think I really get the feeling like in their case, it really was more about like how it was going to reflect on the student council and everything. And that's why they did it. I really need Mob to have a talk with his brother. I really hope Ritsu isn't so far gone that they can't just talk this out. But I don't know. I feel like things escalated really quickly with him. I don't know. And you know, if we look at Mob, who had Reigen as a mentor, like, I gotta admit, Reigen is starting to grow on me a little bit, because we saw, like, in this episode where those con artists were, just, oh, my poor Mob, I can't believe they would do that to him. That made me so upset. But, you know, we saw, that even though and it's never right to con people, but there is, like, sort of a line he won't cross, you know? Like, people come to him and they want to, you know, like, speak to their deceased relatives or whatever. And yes, he is, you know, it is wrong to, like, put on that he's talking to them and everything. But there's something, like, there's something a lot less slimy about that than, like, trying to set someone up and, like, extort them for money for, like, breaking something, you know? I don't know. Neither one of them's really right. It's really hard to defend what Reigen does, but there is, like, sort of an honor about him, you know? And, like, we know that he taught Mob, you know, to never use his powers on another human, to be very careful with his powers, and to look at his powers like a knife, you know? Like, a knife is only dangerous when you're pointing it at somebody, you know, and kind of gave him these actually pretty good and wise ideals about his powers and about life. And then we have Ritsu, who's like being guided by Dimple, who is very obviously not a good mentor. Not in the sense that, like, he's going to impart any wisdom or, like, good morals. Let's put it that way. So, you know, that could be kind of a difference, too. Now I'd be very curious to know how Teru came to know about his powers and what his influence is, you know. We don't really know very much about him aside from he's very insecure on the inside and he has psychic abilities. But, wow, a lot of philosophical stuff in here, guys. I love it. Fun show, beautifully designed show, good pace, good story, but kind of takes the kind of the outward plot of the show, which is like, oh, it's about supernatural powers, and kind of like takes that and makes a lot of, like, philosophical commentary about it, about, like, the world. So, it was a great episode. I can't wait to see more. I'm really, really enjoying the show. Like I said, they just have totally gone off and done their own thing now, and I'm all about it. So, you guys, I hope you had as much fun with that episode as I did. I had a blast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please be sure to join me next time, and we will watch it together. Bye for now, guys.